All right, so maybe you're thinking about trying a low-carb diet.
Okay.
Or maybe you're just curious about all the hype.
Yeah.
Either way, you're in the right place. We're taking a deep dive into low-carb meal planning today.
And what's so interesting about this topic is that low carb doesn't actually mean no carbs at all.
Right, right.
It's really more about being strategic and learning to restrict carbs.
Yeah, and what surprised me is that low-carb doesn't mean just like steak and bacon.
Yeah.
There's actually like a whole range of foods you can eat on a low-carb diet and even some carbs.
That's right. It's about finding that balance. So a typical low carb diet aims for under 26% of your daily calories coming from carbs.
Oh, okay, under
To
26%.
put that into perspective, think about the average Western diet, which is often over 50% carbs.
Wow.
It's a pretty big shift, right?
Yeah, so 26%, let's put that into real terms. For someone eating like a 2,000-calorie diet,
Yeah.
that's got to be like less than 130 grams of carbs each day.
You got it. Less than 130 grams.
It really makes you think about how many carbs are in all those foods we eat regularly.
Absolutely. And, within this framework, you've got a whole bunch of different approaches.
Yeah.
You've got keto, you've got Atkins, South Beach, even paleo and Dukan.
Oh, so many choices.
Each one has its own, guidelines and limits on carbs, which really impacts what you can and can't eat.
Okay, so many options.
Yeah.
So before we dive into each diet specifically, I'm curious, what are the pros and cons of each of these approaches?
Sure. So let's start with keto, because that's probably the most famous one.
Yeah.
It's super effective for fast weight loss.
Yeah.
But research has shown that it's not always easy to stick with long term
I can see that.
for everybody. Because restricting carbs that much, that can be really tough.
Yeah.
And there's also the risk of not getting all the nutrients you need if you don't plan it carefully.
Okay, that makes sense. So then there's Atkins,
Right.
which starts out with very low carbs,
Uh-huh.
but then slowly adds more back in over time. So maybe that makes it a little easier to stick with long term.
Potentially, yeah. And then you've got South Beach, which is interesting because it focuses on lean proteins and healthy fats
Okay.
and good carbs
Okay.
while still lowering your overall carb intake.
Right.
So a lot of people see it as a more balanced approach.
Okay.
And it can be good for people who are worried about heart health, too.
That makes sense. What about paleo? That one always seemed a little, I don't know, primal to me.
It is. It is. Paleo mimics the way our hunter-gatherer ancestors used to eat.
Yeah.
So it's all about whole, unprocessed foods. Meat, fish, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds.
Right.
But it cuts out grains, dairy, legumes, and that can be a challenge for some people.
Yeah, that's a lot to cut out. And finally, there's the Dukan diet.
Right, right. Dukan is high in protein and low in both carbs and fat.
Wow.
It's known for its really structured phases and the potential for really quick weight loss.
Yeah.
But it can be really restrictive, especially in those early stages.
So it sounds like there's so many choices when it comes to low-carb diets. Yeah.
And finding the one that really works for you, for your own needs and preferences, is going to be key.
Absolutely. What might be good for one person might not be good for another.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm interested in this low-carb thing. What kind of foods can I enjoy?
Oh, okay.
What's on the eat freely list versus what should I be careful about?
Well, the good news is that the eat freely list is pretty tasty.
Okay,
Think meat, fish, eggs,
okay.
non-starchy veggies, things like leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, peppers.
You know what? I have to admit, when I thought about low carb, I thought bland, like really limited.
Yeah.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the moderation list where you've got starchy veggies,
Okay.
higher carb fruits,
Right.
and you can have limited amounts of some grains and legumes.
Okay.
Things like sweet potatoes,
Right.
berries, quinoa, lentils.
So it's not really about cutting everything out completely. It's more about
Making smart choices and paying attention to how much you're eating.
exactly. Even on that moderation list, portion control is really important. Like a serving of cauliflower rice should be like the size of a tennis ball, not a whole mountain on your plate.
That's a good visual.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking of meals, our excerpt actually has a sample 3-day low-carb meal plan.
It does. It does. And what's nice is that it actually gives you full meals instead of just listing ingredients.
Yeah.
It's much easier to see how to actually put low-carb eating into practice that way.
Okay, well, let's jump in and see what a day of low-carb eating looks like.
Okay, but just remember, this meal plan is just a sample.
Hmm.
It's really important to tailor your approach to your own needs and preferences.
Yeah, absolutely. So day one, it starts with a bunless burger
Right?
topped with cheddar cheese, broccoli, and salsa.
This is good.
And already that sounds more exciting than I thought it would.
Right. And it's only 8.5 grams of carbs.
Wow. Okay.
For lunch, there's grilled chicken with zucchini noodles, tossed in garlic, butter, and Parmesan. That comes out to 17 grams of carbs.
Zucchini noodles instead of pasta. That's a great idea. I never would have thought of that.
It's a good low-carb swap.
Yeah.
And then for breakfast, you've got 2 slices of sprouted Ezekiel bread,
Okay.
topped with some avocado, salt, and pepper.
All right.
A little higher in carbs, 36.5 grams,
Yeah.
but still balanced and nutritious.
So even though the meals are so different, they're all staying within that low-carb range?
Yep.
I'm starting to see how this could be a sustainable way to eat. What about day two?
Day 2 kicks off with a protein-packed breakfast. We're talking Greek yogurt, blueberries, and almonds.
Okay, that's something I can get behind.
Right. About 19.4 grams of carbs.
Okay. So what about lunch and dinner?
For lunch, ribeye roast
Ooh, now we're talking.
with mashed rutabaga and green beans totals out to 13.5 grams of carbs.
Okay.
And then dinner is baked salmon with asparagus and cauliflower rice.
Okay.
That one's only 7.7 grams of carbs.
Wow. I'm seeing a theme here.
What's
On
that?
protein.
Healthy fats.
Yeah, you're right. That's a big part of low-carb eating.
Yeah.
Because it keeps you feeling full and stops those energy crashes you get when you restrict carbs.
Okay, what about day 3? Does it follow a similar pattern?
It does. It does. For breakfast, we've got a breakfast bowl with hard-boiled eggs,
Right.
tomato, and avocado. About 19 grams of carbs for that one.
Right. And lunch.
Lunch is a big shrimp salad.
Okay.
So lettuce, more eggs, tomato, carrots, and a light olive oil vinaigrette dressing.
Sounds good.
Just 10.5 grams of carbs.
So many fresh options. And for dinner.
We're back to grilled chicken,
Okay.
but this time with roasted Brussels sprouts and a little bit of quinoa, comes out to about 25.2 grams of carbs.
So the carb counts are different each day, but they're all well within the limits of a typical low-carb diet.
Exactly.
This meal plan is really showing me what a low-carb lifestyle can look like.
And that's the whole point, right? It's not about depriving yourself. It's about finding tasty, satisfying meals that work with low-carb eating. But what about snacking? You know, when you get hungry between meals.
Oh yeah, that's important. Let's talk about how to snack the low-carb way. You know, snacking on a low-carb diet,
Yeah.
it can actually be pretty easy
Uh,
and enjoyable. It's all about picking the right foods to keep you full and energized between meals.
okay, so give me some examples. What won't, totally blow my carb count?
Well, think protein
Okay.
and healthy fats.
Mm-hmm.
So a piece of fruit with a handful of nuts,
Yeah.
Greek yogurt,
Oh, I love Greek yogurt.
hard-boiled eggs,
Okay.
maybe baby carrots with some hummus,
Right.
a few slices of cheese and deli meat.
I'm all about the Greek yogurt and nuts.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's creamy and crunchy. You can take it anywhere.
Yeah, it's easy.
But what about eating out? Because that can be tough, with any diet, but
Yeah.
especially with low carb, restaurants.
It's true. Restaurants can be tricky.
Yeah.
But if you plan ahead
Okay.
and you've got a few strategies up your sleeve, you can definitely enjoy eating out.
All right. So what are your best tips? How do I navigate a menu, and be low carb smart?
Well, first of all, check the menu online if you can before you even go. That way you can, see what the low-carb options are and kind of prepare yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
Then, when you're at the restaurant, start by choosing water instead of a sugary drink.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Those liquid calories can sneak up on you.
That's a good point. What about appetizers?
Skip the bread basket
Yeah.
and go for things like shrimp cocktail
Okay.
or a small salad,
All right.
maybe a cheese plate.
Well, those are good ideas.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to ordering, the main meal?
Look for dishes that are mainly meat or fish.
Okay.
Ask for extra veggies or a side salad
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
bread, potatoes, rice, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask for sauces and dressings on the side
Right.
so you can control how much you use.
Yeah, because you never know what's hiding in those.
You don't.
Mm.
So many hidden sugars and carbs.
That's a great tip. And what about when the portions are huge? Because that's a classic restaurant problem.
You don't have to clean your plate.
Okay.
Take half your meal home
Yeah.
for later or split a dish with a friend.
That's a win-win.
It is. It is.
You get to enjoy the meal without overdoing it on the carbs and 80 you have leftovers.
Exactly. And my last tip,
Yeah, okay.
don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Most restaurants are happy to help you out, especially if you're polite about it.
Yeah, just advocate for yourself and your needs.
Exactly. You deserve to enjoy your meal and feel good about what you're eating.
Right. And remember, this deep dive is all about giving you information.
Yeah,
So you can make your own choices, but it doesn't replace professional medical advice.
that's right. We've given you a good overview of low carb, but it's really important to talk to a doctor or a registered dietitian
Yeah.
to figure out the best plan for you.
They can help you figure out the right carb intake, any risks or benefits, and make a plan that supports your overall health goals.
Absolutely. And they can help you with any underlying health conditions that might affect your diet choices.
So before we wrap things up,
Okay.
we want to leave you with a little something to think about.
Okay.
If you were to try low carb,
Yeah.
what one food would you miss the most?
And how would you find a substitute for it?
Yeah.
Something that works with your low-carb lifestyle. It's a fun exercise.
Yeah.
It can help you see your relationship with food in a new light and get creative with those low-carb options.
Maybe you trade your pasta for zucchini noodles, or suddenly you love cauliflower rice.
Or maybe you start experimenting with low-carb baking and make some keto treats.
It's amazing what you can do.
It is. The possibilities are endless.
Let us know what you come up with.
Yeah.
Share your low-carb swaps with us. Maybe we'll talk about them in a future deep dive.
Yeah.
It is amazing what people come up with.
Oh, it's really impressive.
Like those low-carb alternatives are really getting creative.
Yeah, you don't have to sacrifice flavor or satisfaction just because you're eating low-carb.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into low-carb diets,
Yeah.
I just want to say this is really just the beginning.
Yeah.
We've given you the information, the basics, but now it's up to you to take this and apply it to your own life.
It is. That's the exciting part.
And remember, the key is to be curious and experiment.
Yeah.
It's not about following a bunch of strict rules. It's about finding what works for you and your own needs.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah, there's no right answer. It's all about what works for you as an individual.
And the more you learn, the better you'll be able to make healthy choices.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So keep asking questions, keep trying new things.
Yeah, don't be afraid to get adventurous.
And most importantly, keep diving deep into the things you're interested in.
Absolutely.
Until next time.